Then a groan of stressed metal. The siphon's carcass sparked somewhere to his left. Zinnia stirred beneath him, her breath fogging his fractured visor. "Your arms." He followed her gaze. A stalactite shard protruded from his suit's shoulder joint, its tip glistening red. Adrenaline blurred the pain. "Move," Zinnia rolled him aside, her gloves already unshearing a medkit. "The suit's integrity is compromised. I must seal it." Darian stared at the stalactite. Its edges were serrated, hungry. "Leave it. The bleeding is slow." "Do not be a fool twice tonight." She snapped the shard's base, her face inches from his. In the lamplight, he saw the fine scar along her hairline, the tremor in her jaw, fear or fury. The sealant foam burned like acid. He bit back a curse, focusing on her hands, steady despite the rubble still shifting around them. "Why?" he gritted out. "The siphon was your idea." She paused, a pebble clattered down the newly formed slope. "My brother died in a tunnel collapse. Tycho crater, helium-3 mine." Her thumb pressed too hard on the foam applicator. He trusted his engineer's calculations. They were optimistic. Darian's breath hitched. The foam's stench reminded him of Mars, burned insulation and regret. "You think me like him." "I think all engineers believe numbers can outrun chaos." She ripped a pressure bandage from its pack. "Hold still." The pain crested. He gripped her wrist, feeling her pulse rabbit-fast beneath the suit's fabric. "You shared oxygen during the storm. Is that not optimism?" Her eyes flicked to his. For a heartbeat, the darkness felt less absolute. "That was calculus," she said, but her pulse leaped under his fingers. The medbay lights hummed a flatline chorus. Darian lay on the examination slab, his arm numb from biofoam injections. Zinnia stood at the observation pane, her back rigid. Earth hung in the viewport behind her, its blues and greens muted by polar night. "They are accelerating the timeline," she said. "The Directorate's ships have entered lunar orbit." Darian flexed his fingers. The medbots had done clean work, but the ghost of the stalactite lingered. "Your falsified reports." "Marginally effective." She turned, her profile etched against the stars. "We need results from the siphon, proof the alternate deposit is viable." He sat up, the slab's cold seeping through his thin gown. "It is not just the lithium they want, it is submission." Zinnia's reflection fragmented in the pain. "Then we must make submission unprofitable." A chime interrupted. "Priority alert, reactor core 2 overheating." She was at the door before the klaxon began. "Rest," she ordered. But Darian was already pulling on his boots. The lava tube's second descent felt like a seance. The rubble remembered their previous failure, whispering through every footfall. Darian reset the siphon's anchors, his healed shoulder throbbing in time with the machine's pulse. Zinnia monitored the seismograph, her face a mask of reflected data, tremors at 9-second intervals, harmonic resonance from the siphon. Unavoidable, he tweaked the coil array, sweat stinging his eyes. The lithium matrix is denser than projected, heat dispersion requires. The ground lurched. Zinnia caught the seismograph before it fell, her curse swallowed by the tube's roar. The siphon shuddered, its legs buckling. "We'll shut it down." "No," Darian wrenched open the control panel. "We lose containment now. The plasma feed implodes." Molten rock bubbled, the ceiling weeping stalactites. Zinnia grabbed his arm. "There is another way. Reroute the plasma through the emergency vents. Use it as a torch." He stared at her. "That would require manual ignition, outside the shield." Her gloves were already sealing her helmet. "Then you will work quickly." They carved through the collapse as a fever carves through bone. Zinnia braced herself against the siphon's carcass, directing plasma bursts into the rubble. Darian fought the ruptured controls, his vision blurring with heat and radiation warnings. When the path finally cleared, they did not speak. There was no air for words, only the shared understanding of hands clasping forearms to climb, of breath synchronized to the fading Geiger counter's click. The colony's dawn simulation felt hollow after the tube's primordial dark. Darian found Zinnia in the hydroponics bay, her fingers trailing over basil leaves. The plants were Earth's apology, their fragrance a lie of abundance. She did not turn. They have agreed to negotiate. He leaned against the nutrient tank, its fluid sloshing like a tide, because of the siphon's data. Because we made them fear. She plucked a leaf, crushing it between glove and thumb. The lava tube's instability, their engineers confirm it. They will settle for half the lithium. Darian watched her profile, the scar, the taut jaw, the way her throat moved when she swallowed lies. At what cost? Oversight audits, a seat on the council for their corporate envoy. Her smile was razor-thin, a slow poison but preferable to hemorrhage. He touched her wrist. She stilled. "You could have let me die in the tube," he said. Her pulse jumped. "You are still useful." "Liars." The basil's scent thickened. Somewhere a pump sighed. Zinnia turned her wrist, her fingers brushing his, a constellation of calluses, a map of work and survival. Above them, Earth's reflection watched, pale and hungry. Chapter 3. The stars above Shackleton Crater burned without compassion. Darian Veth stood at the observation blister, his palms pressed to the cold glass, watching Earth's corporate fleet glitter in the void. 6 ships, sleek as knives, their hulls stamped with the Global Energy Directorate's Cold Serpent insignia. They hovered just beyond the moon's terminator, half-shadowed, patient, predators circling a wounded thing. Zinnia Sol's reflection appeared beside his in the glass. She wore her pressure suit, the orange stripes faded to rust by years of abrasive dust. Her gloved hand hovered near the pane as though to touch the ships, then curled into a fist. "They will land at dawn," she said. Darian studied her profile, the scar, the sharp angle of her jaw, the way starlight pooled in the hollow of her throat. 2 weeks since the lava tube collapse. 2 weeks of stolen hours recalibrating the siphon, of Zinnia's fingers brushing his during tool passes, of silence that ached like a fresh wound. "The alternate deposit is not ready," he said. "No," she turned, her suit's joints whispering, "but they do not know that." They walked the empty corridor toward the reactor core, their footsteps echoing through Artemis 9's skeletal silence. The colony had been evacuated to storm shelters, leaving only essential personnel. Darian's repaired shoulder throbbed in time with the coolant pumps. Zinnia paused at a maintenance terminal, her fingers flying across the keys. "I have rerouted auxiliary power to the siphon. If we overload the thermal buffers, it becomes a bomb." Darian gripped her wrist. The terminal's light bled blue across their hands. "You would vaporize the lithium, destroy any chance of extraction." She did not pull away. Better a scarred hand than a severed arm. Her eyes held the same flint-edge resolve he had seen in the storm when she shared her oxygen, when she chose calculus over corpses. He released her, the ghost of her pulse lingering on his palm. "They will kill you for this." "Perhaps," she resumed typing, "but they will not have you." The words hung between them, sharp and fragile as an ice filament. Darian stepped back, his spine pressing against the cold wall. 10 years of guilt, of Martian ghosts whispering coward, and now this woman, this relentless glacial strategist, offered him a lifeline he did not deserve. He left her at the terminal. The mining bay stank of lithium and fear. Darian crouched beside the thermal siphon, its fractured carapace still smeared with lava tube residue. The machine hummed a broken song, its plasma core unstable. He traced the control panel's cracks, remembering Zinnia's hands steady on the medbay sutures, her breath warm through a shattered visor. "You are still useful." A lie, they both knew it. He input the override codes, bypassing the safety protocols. The siphon's reactor flared, its heat searing through his gloves. Alarms shrilled. On the monitor, Earth ships began their descent, thrusters glowing like falling stars. Zinnia's voice crackled over the comm. "Darian, what are you doing?" He did not answer. The siphon's core reached critical mass, its light bleaching the bay white. In the glare, he saw Mars again, the collapsing drill site, his team's screams smothered by red dust. This time, he would not run. The bay door hissed open. Zinnia stood framed in the threshold, her helmet discarded, hair damp with sweat. She raised her sidearm. "Step away from the console." He smiled. "You won't shoot me. You do not know what I will do." The siphon trembled, its legs buckling. Darian gripped the edge of the console. "This ends tonight, one way or another." Zinnia's aim wavered. The gun's barrel dipped, rose again. "You think this is redemption, a grand explosion?" "I think it is the only choice left." She crossed the bay in 3 strides, her free hand yanking him backward. The gun pressed against his sternum. "You do not get to choose alone." The siphon's alarms reached a fever pitch. Zinnia's eyes locked on his. For a heartbeat, he thought she might pull the trigger. Then her mouth found his, desperate and bruising, the gun clattering to the floor. The world narrowed to lithium heat and her fingers in his hair. 10 years of isolation burned away in the furnace of her anger, her need, her terrible calculus. When she broke the kiss, her breath came ragged. "We do it together." Maringenei's surface was a graveyard of light. The corporate lander loomed ahead, its hatch yawning open. Darian adjusted his stolen envirosuit, the Directorate's serpent emblem itching his shoulder. Beside him, Zinnia checked the charges strapped to her belt. "Remember," she said, "the east lava tube is rigged to collapse. Lure them there." He nodded, his throat tight. The plan was madness: infiltrate the corporate team, sabotage their equipment, detonate the charges to seal the lithium vein. A suicide gambit wrapped in Zinnia's meticulous contingencies. The lander's ramp lowered. Darian stepped into the glare of work lights, his boots sinking into dust. 5 corporate engineers turned, their faces obscured by mirrored visors. "Report," barked the nearest. Darian gestured to the siphon wreckage. "The vein is unstable, requires recalibration." Zinnia moved behind the group, silent as lunar shadow. Her fingers danced across the charged triggers. The ground shuddered. Cryovolcanic vents roared awake, spewing ice plumes into the black sky. The corporate team scattered. Zinnia's voice cut through the chaos. "And now." Darian lunged for the lander's control console. Gunfire erupted. A round grazed his thigh, the suit's sealant foam hissing. He slammed the lockdown codes, sealing the corporate team outside. Zinnia appeared at his side, blood streaking her temple. "The charges are set." "Go," he shoved her toward the emergency rover. "I will detonate." She gripped his wrist. "That is not the plan." "Plans change." He activated the detonator. "Tell the colony, tell them I." The explosion tore the night. Silence. Darian floated in it, weightless. His body was smoke, his bones ash. A pressure against his chest, rhythmic, insistent. "Breathe, you will breathe." He opened his eyes. Zinnia crouched over him in the rover's wreckage, her hands compressing his sternum. The colony's dome shimmered behind her, its ice walls cracked but standing. The charges. Contained, she wiped blood from his lips. The lava tube collapse shielded the colony. The corporate ships are retreating. He tried to sit up. Pain lanced his ribs. The lithium. Gone, vaporized, her voice broke. Earth has agreed to terms. He laughed, tasting copper. You negotiated during an explosion. It was persuasive. Her face blurred. He reached for her, his fingers brushing the scar. You should have left me. Her tears fell hot on his cheeks. I do not know how. 6 months later, the greenhouse air hung thick with jasmine and memory. Darian knelt by the algae tanks, his hands steady as he adjusted the nutrient flow. The rebuilt colony hummed around him, its wounds sutured with ice and stubbornness. Zinnia entered without sound. She wore civilian clothes now, a gray tunic, its collar loose enough to show the hollow of her throat. In her palm lay a lithium shard set in ice, its edges softened by time. You kept it, he said. She placed the shard in his hand. Balance requires remembrance. He turned the crystal. Sunlight refracted through it, painting her face in fractured gold. They did not speak of the dead, of the corporate envoy now orbiting in cinders, of the quiet nights when Zinnia's breath hitched with nightmares, or the mornings Darian woke clawing at Martian ghosts. Instead, he threaded his fingers through hers. Earth hung beyond the dome, a half-crescent of borrowed light.